Welcome back everybody. In this week's video we are going to be making teacups. We got 9 pieces of clay in front of us, 5 that are wedged, 4 that are straight from the bag, and we got our trusty laser level to make everything the same height and width. So if that's something that you folks want to see, stick around and find out how we do it. So I have another order from my wife to make some teacups. And we're going to focus on this type of shape: straight walled, angled bottom, and a nice trimmed foot. And I will be doing one in this style just so you can see the difference in how to make them. And we are going to be using wedged clay and unwedged clay to see the difference in terms of throwability and how they work, so that if you ever want to make a large production order, maybe you don't need to wedge it and you can just cut it from the bag, weigh it out, and then just start throwing. And so we're going to clear this area. I'm going to talk about a few things that I have, and then we're going to get started. So the first thing that I want to talk about before we get started is this bat system that I use whenever I make my production pieces. And this is a bat system made by a company called Dirty Girls. And you can see their little logo right there. And they have both square inserts and circle inserts. I bought the circle. And I've been using these for about 7 years. They've been holding up really well. And these inserts, they come, when you buy it, I think in 10. And then you can buy more if you need. And the cool thing about these is they take up so little space. So whenever you're making a lot of pieces, if you are using bats, this is something that you may want to consider. And I like them. They recommend you keep it dirty. There's a bunch of instructions that come with it. And these things just work amazing. So I do want to review a few different bat systems they sell on Amazon, because there are cheaper alternatives that I've seen some other students use. And if that's something that you folks want to see, let me know in the comments below which things you'd want me to review, and then maybe I can buy them and review them for you guys before you guys make a decision. But anyway, I like bat systems. They work wonderful, and the Dirty Girls is the one that I've been using, and this is the one that I know. So we're going to get started on making some cups or teacups. And these are the shapes that we're going to be making. I'm going to be focusing on this style here because this is my go-to. I like the straightness and the very kind of Asian Japanese feel. This one is a little more of a mug style, but I'll be making one example of this just so you can kind of see how I do this, minus the texture of course. And then when we make them, we're going to be using 2 pieces of clay, one that is prepped and one that is straight from the bag that's cut up. And I'm going to be making them so you guys can know if or not you really need to wedge the clay for production, or at least for small pieces like this. All right, so let's get this aside, and we are going to be using 1.25 pounds or 1.25 pounds of clay. So that's about half a kilogram. So let's get our things ready, and the first thing we're going to throw is this shape. So before we get started, just want to show you what I'm working with. We have clay directly from the bag, just cut up and weighed out, and then clay that is wedged. They don't wedge it too much, about 20-ish times. I got my container to put all my little goodies that come off the piece, wooden knife for cutting the base, needle for trimming. It's 2 different sponges, one a smaller one, one bigger one. This is just a car wash sponge cut up in different sizes, so much cheaper than buying your regular sponges. And then one new tool that I made is just a 3D printed ring here that's tied to a chamois material. Oftentimes my students lose this in the clay slurry, and then it gets mixed up in our pug mill. And so by tying it to this plastic ring, not only does it float in water, but it's much harder to lose this, because if they pour it into a bucket, this would be easily found. So I'll toss this in my water, and we're going to start with making this shape. We'll be making it one with the wedged clay and one without the wedged clay. And of course, we're going to be using the laser after we create the first teacup. So a lot of information for you folks. So let's just get started and throw the first piece. So no overhead cam today. We're just going straight normal throwing so you guys can kind of see. We'll change the camera angles. This one maybe on the second or third. But for this first one, we're going to go straightforward. And this one's actually going to be a combination of live throwing and commentary like I normally do. And then we're also going to be doing one with the time lapse and voiceover. So I'm not a big fan of the time lapse and the voiceover just because it just takes me so much longer to record it and then talk over myself. So I don't really do it too much, but if that's something that you guys like, let me know, and I can do more styles like that way. And that way it's kind of thrown quicker. But anyway, enough talking. So centering still the same way, digging the well the same way. I'm going to leave myself about 3/8 of an inch of clay, a little more than half an inch. And I'm going to be setting up for the pull. So we're going to the claw pull. Oh, this one's just more the pinch and pull. So not the claw like you saw on other rows, but the pinch and pull. And so I'm just squeezing the clay like this and lifting up. Sponge in my right hand to support the clay underneath. So pinch. And then my right hand's pushing the clay up against my left pointer finger. That makes the clay rise. Let's do it one more time. This time my hands rise with the clay. You can see some slight wobbliness, but that's fine. And because I've been so used to throwing bowls, I haven't thrown teacups in a while, I'm going to make sure to get this a little more straight. And so I'm going to throw a straight cylinder more or less. So collar in. Diameter wise, I'm aiming for about 3 inches wide. So not real precise. The crazy thing with these cups is they look really big when you make them, but shrinkage always is something that's hard to account for. And so they do shrink into an appropriate size. So whenever you throw these, you might be like, oh my god, these things are huge, but once you start trimming, once you fire them, the size will kind of be more true to a normal teacup. Alright, so I'm going to compress the bottom. So no overhead cam today, but basically using this, applying downwards pressure, and then slowly sliding it outwards to compress. And if the overhead cam is something that you guys really like, just let me know in the comments and then I'll set it up for every video. But it does take a little longer setup, a little longer editing, so it just takes the whole process and makes it so much longer, but I know some of you guys like it. Alright, so I got my shape, and I'm not too worried about measuring. That looks like a pretty good size to me, so I'm going to go ahead and then get my finger, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to go and do the wavy lines. Okay, so push in, and go up and down. So this can be done with slip like you saw in my other video, but I find the wavy lines with your fingers so much faster because you don't have to deal with the slip. I'll go ahead and cut this top off. And then use the chamois to round the lip. And some water. It's a little dry. If you want to see more ceramic videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. That way it helps grow the channel and you'll be able to see these videos as they're released every week. There we go. And before I cut this off, I'm going to shoot the laser at it because I want to make sure that every mug I make, every teacup I make is going to be the same size now. So we're going to go ahead and then change the camera angle so you can see how I set up my laser. We're going to shoot it right here and then we're going to start making the other pieces. Alright, so here is my laser level. Let's go ahead and turn it on. You can see the laser pointing at it. We're going to shift this so that it moves freely. You You can see it shakes left to right. And we're going to go ahead and start lifting this up to aim it at the leftmost piece, the leftmost of the piece. And we're going to start loosening a few things. So I'm loosening the part where you can start cranking it up to get the height. So right there, I got a good height. So we're going to go ahead and stop it right there and tie it down. Twist it down, and then we're going to aim this directly at the corner, and so that you guys can see the laser is shooting right here, so I know how tall to make it and how wide to make it. So let's go ahead and set the camera up, and we're going to keep throwing this shape, same size, same shape. Alright, I got my laser set up. It's shooting exactly where I want it. You can see it spin and hit. This piece does look a little off-center in terms of the rim, but making production, so not too worried about that. Let's get this finished by creating the groove at the base and wiring it off. I got the non-wedged clay, so the interesting thing about non-wedged clay is it feels really stiff until you start wedging it. So I'm just going to gently tap it into a ball, or a cylinder in that case, throw it down, and then just to be safe, I'm going to be coning up and down this piece a little more. So it is definitely much stiffer as I compress down. But let's get the clay moving. Okay, now it's starting to loosen up. So definitely have to cone up and down a few more times than I normally would. Does it save time in the wedging process? I think so, but we'll see how it throws once we start pulling the walls. Okay, it definitely feels a little stiffer. Okay, set my inside corner, and let's do the claw. Okay, let's compress. One more claw pull. Now I went out a little wide, wasn't trying to do that. And let's do the rib to straighten. Bring it in just a tad bit. This one I went a little too thin and aggressive with the claw pull. You can see that it's much taller than the wire that it needs, much taller than the laser that it needs to be. Okay, let's do the wavy lines. Right. Clean up the inside, let's compress the bottom. And so compressing the bottom, I treat it kind of like trimming. I was working from the center, pushing it out to flatten everything. And then my horizontal line, it is touching it right there. Okay, looks good. And this one definitely looks the best in my opinion. It's the most straight. The other one's got kind of fat towards the bottom, and then it got and just looked really bulky. But this one looks much better. So I just got to make sure to really compress and bring the clay inward. And pardon the airplane flying over. They always like to fly over when I am throwing some pottery. Alright, and so let's go ahead and cut this off. Ooh, that almost hit the piece. Alright, number 3 done. And before I do the time lapse, I'm going to do one more piece. And that one is going to be of the round form. So I'm going to still hit the same width, but I'm going to have it balloon out a little bit. So this is how you should throw it if you want to do the round form. And I'll use another not prep clay. So this time I'm even going to tap it. I'm just going to add some water and slam it down. Okay, this should be fun. Definitely never have done this before. Look at that. Oh god. Alright, anyway, let's go ahead. Getting better. Would I want to do that again? I probably would at least tap it into a ball. Would I do it for larger pieces? Probably not. For really small ones, I would say probably up to 2 pounds, this works really well. But anything bigger than that, I don't think it's worth it. Spend the extra time to at least tap it into a ball. Alright, there we go. Dig our well. So these pieces definitely feel stiffer because, of course, they were not prepped. They were just thrown directly on the wheel. Alright, but anyway, for the claw. So one interesting thing about the claw is if you just really compress and squeeze the clay, you don't even need to pull up. The clay naturally goes up as you thin this out by squeezing. So I'm really using the middle finger and just bringing it towards my outside finger. If you just watch, I'm not even bringing my hand up, but the clay is already starting to rise. And then once I want to pull, then I engage and I start pulling. And then it gets a really nice straight wall. So mastering the claw technique will definitely help your production. Okay, one more. There we go. Do a nice little collar because it got a little too wide. Rib to straighten the wall because I am going to add texture to this. And just using the rib on the outside is just so satisfying. And then I'm going to do one more gentle pull from the bottom, only because I'm going to lose some height when I throw in the belly. And this is a different type of pull. I didn't even move my inside hand, I just moved my outside hand. So I could get the wall pulled just a tad bit upwards. Okay, before I do anything else, let's compress the bottom. I think this is my most centered piece yet. Color in just a tad bit. Okay, and then let's go do the wavy lines. For this one, I'm going to leave the rim more or less smooth, just for stylistic change. Okay, so for shaping, I'm just going to use my fingers. I'm going to be pushing the clay out, and I'm letting it expand around my finger. So inside, pushing out a 3, and I'm just going to have my right finger here at the rim to make sure it doesn't expand too much. And I'm just going to add a little belly to this. And not much. So I'm going to go back down and push out a little more. And when you trim this, you can really make this belly more emphasized by removing this chunky part at the bottom. That looks good. Let's get this inside taper a little more. And because this one doesn't match the rest of the pieces, I don't really need to have it match the same height. But just for uniformityness, I'm just going to cut it, especially because the rim's kind of thin. I'm going to just get this section out a little more around this. I just want to bring this and make it straight. And round the top. This one looks more like a tumbler. Drink some wine, favorite alcohol, favorite beverage. Could be tea too. All right, let's create the groove at the base and wire this off. I gotta admit, voiceovers aren't my favorite, but in this instance, I think it was appropriate because when I sped up the video, it looks like it's not sped up, but it is. It's a weird optical illusion. I don't know what you would call this, so anyone in the comments, if you know what it's called when it looks like it's sped up, but it's not sped up, but it is sped up. What is that called? But anyway, this is sped up 1,200 times normal speed. So the whole clip was about 11 minutes long, and it comes out to around 50 seconds when it's finally done. And so I throw these 3 teacups, and you can see the first 2 were thrown really centered, really clean, but the last cup that you see looks very wobbly, and it's really interesting on how it changed quite a bit. And the laser level is really helping me in creating these really quickly. So you can just cut it directly at the line, wire it off, and then you're ready to start the next piece. And so this one is only 600 times normal speed, so half the speed slower than the other one. And please disregard how wobbly the rim is. I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, that looks really bad. But a cool thing about throwing is you can easily cut that off and no one will ever know that it's not level. And so whenever I'm throwing production, I'm not worried about getting it perfect. I'm trying to hit my width, my height, and I'm cutting away the excess clay and then trimming what I need. And that's the beauty of clay. You don't have to throw it perfect on the wheel. You can always adjust it later when the clay gets a little drier. But anyway, enough about that. Let's move on. And the last piece for this video, centering, coning up and down really quickly, compressing. And you can see I'm digging my well. Here goes the claw pull. This one is definitely a little more centered. It doesn't look as nauseating as it's rolling around and spinning. Cleaning up the edge with the rib. Compressing the bottom with the top or the handle section of the rice paddle. Cleaning it up with a sponge, adding the texture. And I like putting the texture on with my finger rather than slip because it's just faster. And then cutting it away at the top, cleaning it up, smoothing it with a chamois, remove the excess with the wooden knife, wiring, and I'm done. And there we go. Here are the 9 teacups that we've made, the first 4 that we've made, and the next 5 that we made, 2 separate sets, but the same session. And now I'm going to let these dry out, and we're going to get them trimmed in the next video. And I'm going to show you guys how to trim these with 3 different variations on the foot. So if that's something that you want to see, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see that video when it comes out. And we are also going to be glazing these in the videos to come, so that way I can go over the way I like glazing and dive into glazing techniques, which I haven't really covered yet on this channel. And I forgot to mention the wedge clay versus the brand new clay from the bag. Which one did I prefer? After throwing all of these, I think I actually preferred the clay that wasn't prepped, because it was stiffer. It was a little more difficult to center, but the moment I started pulling up my walls and starting to get the details on, the clay was a little stiffer, so it didn't really go off center as I was pulling. So you can give it a shot, see what you like better, and let me know in the comments what you think you prefer. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I can't wait to see you guys next week when we trim these. But until then, thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.